focus on execution. My whole life I was told what I was doing was wrong. It was crazy to launch an internet site for a liquor store in 1996. And then I did email instead of catalogs, and that was not smart. What's email? And then I bought Google AdWords, and I was spending more money on Google AdWords than I was spending on direct mail and newspaper ads, and that was stupid. And then I sat down and started filming a wine show on YouTube a month after YouTube came out, and people thought I lost my mind, let alone that it was stupid. And then I took all the money I had in my life, that I saved my whole life, and invested in Facebook and Twitter 5 years before they became public companies. And all my financial advisors and family and everybody else thought that was stupid. I'm only excited when people tell me it is stupid. That's when I know I'm about to do something smart.
Need motivation?
Watch a top 10 with Believe Nation.
Hey, it's Carmichael, and I make these videos because the thing that saved me as an entrepreneur was watching the stories of other successful entrepreneurs, and I learned from their advice, I learned from their motivation, and honestly, I have no idea where I would be if I didn't have those videos to inspire me. I still need them for myself today too, and I hope that they can inspire you as well. So today, let's learn from one of the best, Gary Vaynerchuk, and my take on his top 50 rules of success. Enjoy.
When you're a sales-driven organization, the most important thing to do with content is make it brand. Content on the internet is everyone here's opportunity to offset the aggressiveness of what is sales. It's an opportunity to provide value to the audience. It's a way to provide affinity towards you and your company by showing the humanity, AKA silly things like, just think of The Office, the TV show. Like if you have somebody funny in your company named Ricky, like get Ricky on video, because it shows a different side to what everyone's accustomed to, which is the cold LinkedIn, the cold email, the cold call, the very quick to, hey, let's do business at a conference. So the biggest thing I've learned for sales-driven organizations, which is amazing, I love sales-driven organizations, you know, is thinking about content as your appetizer to the sales being the meal. If you have a great appetizer, you're setting up a great meal. And so I think the biggest mistake, I see it over and over and over and over and over and over and over in these dynamics, is that people use content as a sales engine instead of a brand engine. Nike doesn't cold call you or knock on your door and ask you to buy, you know, their sneakers. And even when you think about Salesforce and SAP, even though they have great sales DNA and infrastructure, there's so much brand going on for a reason. You need to have that offset, right? You need to have that honey to the vinegar. You need to have that good cop to the bad cop. Content on LinkedIn is the good cop. And I think that is a very difficult maneuver for the DNA of most of the people that are watching this right now. Period. And that's okay. That doesn't mean you're bad. Doesn't mean you're stupid. It means that there's a humongous, uncomfortable, monstrous opportunity that if you heed the strategy of what I'm talking about and start implementing it, like why not do an hour of Q&A on LinkedIn and just answer questions? Everyone's so fear-based and so like lack of, you know, people are not abundant, right? Like I give away all my best advice. I'm not scared of somebody starting another agency or another agency taking it. Like it doesn't matter, the world's abundant. I'm gonna get mine. How many people here own their own business? Great, this is gonna really hit for a lot of you. There's a lot of people that you can talk to afterwards. If you guys see this man afterwards, tell him that built companies and they built it, let's say from 0 to $1 million a year or $500,000. And they loved it, life was awesome. But from $1 million to $1.5 million, that like screwed it up. Like there's a Mendoza line where like, people don't understand this. This is why I push happiness so much. I'm thrilled that your business now does 3 million instead of 1.6 million. But you used to love your life at 1.6 and you hate it now because you're managing or you're doing this or that or you're stressing. I think you can control the size of your business. You can also bring someone in. You can bring in a partner. You can bring in a big time employee that gets bonused on net profits.
What sort of advice do you have for building a community and the right people around you?
Being self-aware. You know, like if you're an extrovert, it's a layup. Like just go outside and say what's up. But if you're introverted, put in real work to create safe places to meet people. Spend a lot of time networking with people that you feel safe with, finding people to introduce you to in those markets. I really think all of this is one big game of self-awareness. And if you're introverted your whole life, at 22 moving to a new city is not when you miraculously become a social butterfly. So you need to lean into who you are, And what you can do is spend a lot of time doing homework of people that you knew from a year older than you that are in that town, or a friend that has a cousin in that town, and feel comfortable in your process. But the ROI is always people. So meet as many people as possible in that new place, but do it your way, not my way or the way that it's supposed to do. Do it your way.
Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet just for this video. The worksheet will highlight all of the lessons learned in this video, as well as pull out our 3 favorite learnings and quotes that will inspire you to actually do something. The worksheet will also give you space to write down what your key takeaways are and your specific plan of action to make sure you're getting results. If you want the worksheet designed specifically for this video, absolutely for free, there's a link in the description below. Go click on it and start building the momentum in your life and your business. I'll see you there.
Almost everybody thinks that resources are limited, and almost everybody has a boss. I don't have a boss, so it's easy for me to talk this way. You know, I have empathy and compassion for somebody who's listening right now and does a seminar and gives away a lot of great advice, and then their boss coming to them and saying, what the hell are you doing? That's like how we get clients, and then they get fired or lose their bonus or are pegged down in the organization. Unfortunately, fear is remarkably effective and a real human trait. I just don't believe in it. And so I just believe that there's so much more financial, and by far, there's more financial, but by far, there's so much more happiness on the back of going with optimism and abundance as your mindset. And so I think it's culture. I think it's the industry culture for many, 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 many years. And I think that business has historically had a cold, kill or be killed kind of mentality. And I think of sports a little bit, I think of business more like sports. I, as a fan, get so angry after a Jets game when my Jets lose and they go and hug all their friends on the other team because I'm pissed. But the reality is I actually fully understand it. I want to kill, crush, destroy, defeat, outmaneuver everybody I compete with at every second. It is my DNA. However, not at the detriment of their lives. Like, I want to do 10 trillion and I want you to do 9 trillion. And that's how I think, and I wish more people realized how real that is and how true that can be. And that's what I think about. I had a meeting today with a sports agent. My brother and AJ and I started a sports agency, right? So we now represent players in football. And he's a big shot. And he was like in one of those conferences with me, and I was educating on what we're doing, and he kind of took a step back. He's like, oh, whoa, this is way bigger than I thought. Like, you guys are really gonna win this thing, huh? And I said, yeah, and I said to him, and this is my favorite part, when all the agents that think they're big shots with big players are shitting on me and making fun of us. When people were putting me down, man, I was collecting them in my head. I just don't believe in anybody's opinion about me more than I believe in the opinion I got about myself. Do you know what the most delicious flavor in the world is? I told you so. You understand? I don't admire anybody enough to take their point of view on me over my own. Listen, let me tell you something about this country. We love the rags to riches story a hell of a lot more than any other story. You are set up for the good shit. It's just, are you gonna work hard enough and get into the right mental place to get there? I think too many people overvalue their time when their time is worth nothing. So, this is my favorite one. Like, I love when people are like, yo, is this worth my time? I'm like, well, and it's in a business context. I'm like, well, how much money is your business making? They're like, yo, I don't have one yet. I'm like, well, your time is worth 0. So I think people are audacious with their time. They're fancy before they're fancy. So everything's worth your time when you're at 0. You may bail. I'm a big believer of I'm in yes culture. My whole game is yes, comma. I'm not a great person to ask the no thing. I think there's people that are more disciplined at no. I just like the value of yes And then if I'm a week, an hour, a year in, and I've realized it's not right, I leave, I bail. Because I'm not worried about the loss, because I'm not hearing anybody's opinions. I think you get context. You know, the reason I like starting up and stopping businesses is because I like the context. Like right now, I'm super hot on this thesis that sports trading cards are about to explode again. So I'm spending an ungodly amount of, I spent 4.5 hours looking at qualitative data and quant data on eBay around Giannis rookie cards from Prism graded PSA 10. 4.5 hours. I don't have like 3 minutes for people that are running like $10 million businesses for me. So I like saying yes because I know I'm learning things, and then if I decide it's not worth it, I'll bounce. So a couple things I would tell you is, one, we need less audacity, right? And we need more tasting. And so, and I know when it's time to say no after I've said yes and realized after tasting it, it's no. This is just like health and wellness. Would you like to be healthier and better shape? Let me help you. Eat well and exercise every day. Meanwhile, people are like, ass implants, steroids, like apple cider, celery, like people are looking for the hack because people don't want to put in the work. You have to know the mission you're on, right? There's some people that are part of an army that go into enemy lines without guns during Vietnam, and we're part of that squad, that was a very different mission than being a general back at the fort, right? Or being somebody with the guns back at the, at the precinct. So to me, cold calling is an incredible challenge. Let there be no confusion. I think nobody here is confused. Very few people are fired up in 2021 to get a cold call. At the same token, it is something that works. There are people who have charisma, charm, strategy. I think the number one answer to cold calling is compassion. If you establish the person that just picked up the phone within the first 30 seconds, 3 seconds, 9 seconds, that you are understanding that it is likely that they are not excited to hear you, however, you genuinely in your soul believe you have something to bring to the table, I think that is the feeling you need to pass on within those first 6 seconds. And I would tell the people that are in the front lines of cold calling, don't apologize. Don't be depressed. So many people reach out to me like, Gary, I have to cold call. I'm like, that's okay. It's awesome. And then other people are like, cold calling's the best because they're awesome at it. It's a very narrow thing. They've got that thick skin and they're just a machine, and so, I think A, don't be apologetic and find compassion. And then B, if you're crushing it and you love it, add some things to your repertoire, including it's wonderful that you're just a machine and unemotional and you eventually get 6. Well, if you deployed compassion and empathy in the first 6 seconds, you might get 39 out of those 1,000 calls.
Your take on it, do you like it? Do you not like it?
Big
Classic.
nose, big nose. I love being transparent with the audience.
Yeah.
And the way that you set it up, I'm extremely nervous to like Drew Bledsoe's wine. I'm looking for Drew's wine, so I'm trying to think about Washington State like nobody's business. This is enough power and flavor profile to concern this Jets fan.
Yeah, we're gonna move on. We're gonna try number 2. So different wine.
Yes, and has a little bit more of that candy thing going on. Like when I think about this is the profile that really took over in the late 90s and early 2000s. Yep. Big League Chew, Skittles, Razzles. If you're a candy connoisseur, this is your wine.
The Razzles actually are kind of like spot on.
Yeah, I think so. By the way, those are the things that was unacceptable when I was doing Wine Library TV. Like, you can't say that. I'm like, I think I can.
Okay, wine number 3. Now, not all of these are necessarily tied to football, too.
I understand. So this aromatically has my attention.
Yeah.
Has an old world funk on initial nose. Little sweaty sock meets like licorice.
And it's a little more restrained. It's a little more pulled back.
So this is my favorite wine. Like if I have to pick a wine.
Straight up, this
is my favorite wine.
Okay.
Now, because I know a lot of people watching, that has a lot to do with where my palate is right now.
Right.
in a lot of ways I can argue over the last 20 years, all three of these could have been my favorite, knowing my palate well. This is just naturally the infrastructure of my actual palate. I'm somebody who loves sauerkraut and pickles and olives, but also can jump from eating a pickle to having a scoop of ice cream, going back to sauerkraut, back to, so this sweet and savory kind of thing that's going on here
right into
crushes for me.
Yeah.
And what, real quick, before I unveil, I don't know if you're allowed to do this as host, which one of the three are your person, like just as a human?
I'm between these two.
Yeah, me
I think
too.
this is a
extremely
nicely
well
done
made.
wine.
I agree.
It's got a little too much oak for me. This has that lift of acidity. This is too candy.
Yeah, this is super candy. And by the way, this is where it gets fun. Like, this is why I love to work in the floor. If somebody came in, I would ask them 2 or 3 questions, and most likely, I'd probably recommend one of these 2 wines.
Yeah.
Because if I could tell this was gonna get them, but to answer your question, this.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you.
Let's go actually in
Wine
order,
number
because I
one.
think it's like, yeah.
Yeah, so I think you'll be pleased to know that wine number 1 was Drew Bledsoe's wine.
Give me some credit. Can I get some credit in the room? I knew
So
it.
you did not pick Drew Bledsoe's wine. You were
God.
free to continue to go to Jets
I really
games,
thought it
you know.
was.
Wine number 2, however, is
Oh, this is gonna be hurt their
this
feelings.
is the Jets wine.
Listen, this couldn't have been better.
That's what the wine is. It's made by Joe Wagner, who made Mayomi and so on.
Who's
It's,
awesome.
You know, who's in, but is in that zone of richer style wine.
Yes.
Wine number 3. So you didn't go for football at all.
Good.
Dwayne Wade's new wine.
Oh, I am massively impressed. And is that with Paul Meyer?
That's with Paul Meyer. Yeah, and with a young winemaker.
I'm still sharp in the wine game. Wow, I'm really impressed with the Wade cap. My man, you learn from winning too. But let me tell you one thing, not trying or doing always loses. You'll learn from winning. I've learned a ton of from winning. I've learned a lot from losing. The only thing I've done much better than a lot of people is I'm always doing. While you're sitting and debating, should I, or could I, or how, or what, I'm working.
When did you know Wine Library was a great vehicle for entrepreneurship, and did you ever think about quitting?
I knew Wine Library was right because my biggest goal at 18 years old was to go and work for my family business for a decade. I stayed longer to build a massive business for my parents because I loved them so much. And I had to give more than I took. And so they gave me so much, including life itself. And so, you know, it was a brain twist of like, how do I do this? So the biggest thing I'm proud of on earth is that from when I tell kids to be patient, they don't know my narrative a lot of times. I, as a 22-year-old kid, worked for my parents' business for 12 years, every day, every Saturday, gave up my entire social life during my 20s, which is the prime, took my family business from a $3 to a $65 million business, and then left at 34 years old with no money because I never paid myself more than $100,000 a year because I poured all the money back into the business, and I owned 0.0% of the business. Because that's what immigrants do. It's a different model, right? Like, it's the family, when a family starts a business, it's the family business, and you don't get the business until the family dies. Like, and I wanted to do other things, so I came, I did my thing, I changed the course of my parents' financial life, the way they changed and created the course of my life, and then I was ready to do my own thing at 34 with nothing. So when people are impatient at 26, I laugh because I only started at 34 for me. Because the first 12 years was for them. And so I knew that was right from the get because that was my mission.
We always say we put our partners first, but how can we go about doing that in a bigger way in 2021? And how do you go about doing that at VaynerX and VaynerMedia?
We ask them what they value the most. Some value us paying them more. Some value us having me give them a shout out because they need brand. Some value coming in and learning how to do marketing in exchange barter to them being a partner. You know, bringing value comes down to listening. When you decide the value you're gonna give someone, you're not providing value, you're giving what you want to give. That's a very different relationship than asking someone what they want and then being able to figure out how to provide it. And by the way, If you have kind candor, when somebody says something you can't provide, you can also articulate that. There are people ask me for things all the time that in my early 20s I would dodge because I didn't want to be mean, and that led me to be not the man I wanted to be. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't stand up enough. And now in my older age, I'm like, look, I can't do that, Karen. That's not in the best interest of what I want to be doing. And so I think kind candor on the back of listening as a communication to your partners will lead to dramatically more fruitful events. In the history of my career, the organic reach thing, that nobody knows who I am, I want to talk about Alabama football, nobody knows who I am, I have 0 followers, MySpace, Twitter, Facebook, Social Cam, Vine, Snapchat, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, none, not a single platform has even been remotely close to what's happening on TikTok when you post your 3rd post and 800,000 people watch it. Now it's already, I don't know if you noticed this, D-Rock, it's already declining because here comes the content, because there was so much attention compared to content, but you would destroy it on TikTok.
Thank you.
Yeah, if I were you, I would make 3 TikToks a day.
Okay.
The way I think you get to the question they had, which is like, what do we make?
Right.
I think you look at what's on the Explore, like the trending page,
Right.
and the biggest mistake people make is they hear this, they go home, they're like, screw it, I'm gonna do it. I'm motivated, Gary Solo motivating, I'm gonna do it. And they're like, they download TikTok, and they're like, now what? 2 things. 1, back to that crazy website, Google, it's crazy. It's an epic one. You know, what works on TikTok, enter, read for 3 hours, but way more importantly, consume TikTok for 5 hours and then make a decision. Don't call your 11-year-old niece and be like, what's this TikTok thing about? She's gonna tell you from an 11-year-old's perspective. You're here for business, for building a brand. You're coming from a different angle. Consume it. That will help you know what to make.
I'm curious to know, given that you have your hands in so many business opportunities and other interests at any given time, what do you think is the key to your productivity?
Gratitude for sure. And I have a general thing that really works for me, which is I think 99% of things don't matter. So that allows me to not get bogged down by anything. And I'm a big fan of juggling 46 balls and being okay with 9 of them dropping versus only trying to hold up 1 and making sure it doesn't drop. So a disproportionate comfort with failure, enormous gratitude, and a perspective on what it all means in the scheme of things, period. I think creativity is the way to really win the B2B game, and this was a very creative B2C example that I do in B2B land all the time now. If all of you had 49 targets to do business with, your ability to follow them on LinkedIn and Twitter, most likely, Instagram as well potentially, is very high. You hit follow. If you then read what they're interested in and what they love in life, you now have an opportunity to create a connection point. Sending somebody a bottle of Dom Perignon and saying, we'd love for you to consider us, may not land if they are rehabbing from alcoholism, may not land if they just don't like champagne, may not land with me who really knows about wine and doesn't want that champagne, wants something smarter and cooler. You didn't know anything about me. I know that you just send bottles of champagne to everybody that's a bigwig, not gonna land. Intent didn't land because I know that I don't mean anything to you. You're trying to get me through this thing. However, let me paint you a different story. So I'm writing this book called The Thank You Economy back in 2011. And it talks about providing value. And I remember thinking, I'd like a little bit more tangible example. It didn't work out for me. It didn't make the book, but here I am a decade later about to tell the story. I called Wine Library and I said, hey, the next time you get a first-time customer, place an order. I want you to take the name. I want you to go to Twitter search, and I want to see if you can actually find the person. So it took a while because most people just weren't on Twitter at the time. And more importantly, most people didn't have unique enough names or put where they were from. It just took a while before we finally found a person with a unique enough name who lived in Chicago, and on their Twitter account, it said they lived in Chicago. It was a unique enough name. We kind of thought we had our person, right? And so we monitored what he was talking about. So here's this gentleman who buys a case of Pinot Grigio. I remember it like yesterday. And all he talks about is Jay Cutler. Jay Cutler was the former quarterback of the Chicago Bears. And he is just on it. Jay Cutler this, he's the best, I love you. da-da-da. So team calls me and says, hey, good news, we got one. We got this guy in Chicago. He's a huge Jay Cutler fan. I go, great. I go, why don't you go to eBay and buy a Jay Cutler signed jersey? I'm on the phone, I'm about to get on a plane. I remember it like yesterday. And they say, Gary, that's like $400. And what he bought was a $180 case that we were making $9 on after shipping. And I'm like, lesson time. I got the teacher, I go, do it. So we buy it, we send it, we say thank you from Wine Library, thank you for joining our family. Hope you enjoy the Pinot Grigio. So now I'm pumped, right? I'm like, wait till this guy gets it. He's gonna post it on Twitter. He's gonna call out, da-da-da. 2 months later, nothing. I like check if we had the right address about a month later when I remembered. And I'm so sad because I thought this was gonna be so epic. We did some other little ones, got some little stuff here and there. And then I get a phone call. It's funny, I travel a lot. Ironically, again, getting on a plane. This time I was actually on the plane, like walking in, sat down in my seat, and the team says to me, hey, we have some great news. Do you remember the Jay Cutler thing? I'll go, yeah. What'd he do? He goes, not him, get this. So they go on to say, Gary, somebody just placed a $6,000 order for Burgundy wines, very high-end stuff. I'm like, cool, what's that, and let us read you the note that he put in the notes field. That's usually for gift notes, but he wrote something else, which was, Dear Wine Library, first of all, please hold these wines because they're expensive and it's a little hot here in Florida. I want you to, wait. It was Florida or Texas, I don't recall at the time, but like, we have warm weather, can you hold the wines? 2, you have an incredible Burgundy selection. I'm also looking for Romani Conti and this and that. Can you please reach out to me? 3, a couple months ago, a friend of mine, let's just call him Don received a Jay Cutler signed jersey in the mail after he bought some wine from you. A, that's incredible. B, I'm a huge Bruce Springsteen fan. Have a good day. To me, that was just unbelievable. To me, that was everything I believe in, which is doing the right thing is always the right thing. We clearly showed a human being we went out of our way to get to know them and do something special, surprised and delighted. That created word of mouth, not on the internet like we anticipated, but in his circle, led to somebody becoming aware of our business and led to this moment. That's called business. And I think everybody who's watching right now has 50 to 100 people they're targeting to do business with. I couldn't recommend more for them to follow their interests and engage with people around their interests, whether it's sending them a violin with a note attached to it, whether it's just replying to them around the things they like, because they also love Dave Matthews Band, and that they'll nerd out on that, and that will lead. This is about humanity. This is about what you would do if you were in the same country club or part of the same Elks Club or part of the same book club with somebody that potentially you could do business with. You would be human and you would win around human interactions. I just believe that this scales your ability to do it with 200 people instead of 2. What you're basically saying is if you're born with money, you've lost from day one. So and honestly, I'm not so sold that you're not wrong. I view, but we also are judging the game. When you don't have anything, you want stuff. So you don't give a shit about merit or respect or skills, you're just trying to get some stuff. But once you get it, how you get it becomes the game. Yeah. And so some of us are fortunate enough to be judging people on the skills, not the stuff. So for me, once I made $100,000 a year, Antonio, then I was good. I thought I'd made it forever. I've never felt the impact of money since that mark the same way. Cause I don't need stuff. I don't need stuff. The reason I love being an entrepreneur is because nobody's my boss. So making $80,000 a year selling rubber bands on Amazon sounds great to me because nobody's yelling at me how many I just like the autonomy. I like the control. You know why I'm a nice guy? It's leverage. When you're giving more than you're asking for, you've got the leverage. I like leverage.
My goal is to go in the next 3 to 5 years from having a taco truck to having a business
Okay.
Do you think that's like something that's smart or just say it's
I don't think it's smart or not smart. I think it's not smart to put yourself into a jail.
Okay.
You saying to yourself, I'm gonna do this in 3 to 5 years is gonna lead to anxiety.
Okay.
Do it in 12 months, do it in 12 years. Oh, by the way, it all depends on what the arbitrage is. You might realize after a year, wait a minute, why would I open a restaurant where the leases are too expensive? I wanna open up 9 more trucks. Stay fluid, don't create a North Star. Here's what you focus on. Let me bring this Tex-Mex delicious food to these kids, and then let me react to what happens. If that leads to a location, great. If that leads to 13 more food trucks, great. If that leads to a big company coming in and trying to turn it into a national chain or a product that's sold by a frozen food company, keep it open, because a lot of people at their young stage make these arbitrary decisions of 3 to 5 years I'm gonna do that. They actually stick to that, and then they don't see all the other opportunity because they're on this narrow thing that a lot of times ends up not being the right thing.
How do you monitor your mentality and mindset to make sure that your thoughts and other people's opinions don't change the goals you set for yourself and who you are as a person?
I just talk to myself all day long. You know, like, dude, other people's thoughts that went away a long time ago. There's nothing that happens in business, right? Like, of other people's opinions, that's harder than like having like peer pressure in high school and college and staying the course. Once I was able to get over like the girl that I liked wanted me to do something that I didn't want to do and I didn't do it, then I was like, everything else was easy. I really think it's time we start talking about curiosity a little bit more. So I've become incredibly passionate about curiosity. I think that in self-reflection mode, so much of what works for me, there's many things that are part of the equation, there's many ingredients that get me there, but curiosity is not something I saw or really even understood as part of the equation. And I think when I think of the collective in this room, something that is very obvious to me is in our current society, we start to demonize curiosity pretty quickly. We get a couple of years of it as a kid, but then just subconsciously, it's not some crazy agenda, but subconsciously, we start going into places that overvalue how it's been done, the black and white, the system. So much of what I've always felt as an entrepreneur was a vulnerability of a school system is not the cliche stuff that you might see in my content, but just by nature, all of us spending the majority of our youth in a system that grades us every 90 days, and we pander to a subjective reality within that, really sets us up to eliminate our creativity and our curiosity, makes us subconsciously conform to the short term, and inherently makes us lack patience. Everybody's looking for so much outside validation that they're impatient. They want to show everybody that they're successful, thus they're rushing into things. You have 23-year-olds who think that they don't have their life figured out, yet they're living for another 80 years. Patience has been huge for me. Most people hear the word patience and have it confused with complacency, laziness, lack of ambition. It's not true. I actually think patience has been foundational in my success. I decided to build my dad's business for him for the first 12 years of my career. That required huge patience from somebody who thought they were great. I didn't even start, quote unquote, until I was 34. Patience is huge, it's huge, and people don't want to do it because they want instant gratification. And more importantly, instant outside validation. Life is about understanding the alternative. It's really hard to complain about what milk was put in your Starbucks when you came from the dirt. So, you know, there's a lot that we don't need to touch on in this room. I could talk about what I think you should be doing from a content standpoint, because the reality is, I promise you, the number one variable of growing your business in this room that is practical, achievable, doable, is how serious you take making content on the internet. It's that simple. No matter what anybody in this room says to me of why no, because they've never started and they have an ideology, or because they've made 45 posts on Instagram and haven't sold anything yet, no matter what your excuse is, I promise you, social media is not broken in that story. You're the one that's broken. It was funny, last week, someone's like, Gary, you've been talking about LinkedIn, and he showed me the posts, and he's like, it's not working. And in the post, I'm talking about making content in the feed of LinkedIn, knowing who you're trying to reach, running ads against the employees of those organizations for content in the feed. And then I ask him what he's doing, and he's spamming people by paying $100 a month for a script that just emails people on LinkedIn. That little story is something I think about every day. The ROI, I like to say, of a basketball is billions of dollars for LeBron James. It's zero for me. How one plays with the tools is the variable of success. And so we can get into the mindset, very much the intro, which was lovely, thank you, and in depth. I do believe that the far majority of what is the opportunity in this room or the limitation sits in two very simple categories. One's uncomfortably black and white, and one is remarkably gray. The black and white is what I just started with. Until you start making dozens of videos, pictures, and written articles a week, you will continue to leave an extraordinary amount of money on the table, and somebody sitting next to you is gonna do it and take your market share. And I don't care if you've been the queen of that city for 30 years and work on your reputation, slowly but surely you will lose, because that's what always happens in business. If that wasn't the case, IBM would still be winning. I love this industry, and I love OGs, because my dad's an OG. I started so young, I'm an OG. Like, I love OG life, and it is absolutely building on reputation. But I love when an agent says to me, dear, you don't get it. I dominate this town for the last 30 years. I'm like, dear, you don't get it. You don't get it. Much bigger companies than you have gone out of business with audacity. And it is audacity in 2022. It is only, and this is very clear, if you're sitting in the crowd and you're not doing this work, it's only two things, and they're both interesting. One is audacity. You're audacious that what you did in 1993 or 2001 or 2007 is enough for you to dominate 2022, or you've lost your ambition, which is okay. I don't think of that as a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing that you're not as hungry. Maybe you've scratched your itch. Maybe you do want to do other parts in your life. But don't lie to yourself. And understand yourself on where you are in your journey. 2022 is going to be a remarkable opportunity for this room. The question is very simple, though. Who's going to actually put in the 30 hours of work starting today to actually know how to do pictures and videos and written words on these platforms, and who's not? And it becomes a very simple game. It's a black and white prescriptive game. Either you're good at it or you're not. No different than basketball. It is very clear to me, 25 years into my career, that kindness and empathy and patience and humility are actually the foundations. And I think the things that all of us think about as soft skills and emotional intelligence are actually the hard skills. That it is far easier for me to find people who are good at the task or have good math skills than it is to find people who are capable of being the bigger woman or bigger man in the face of pressure or adversity. And so for 20 years or so, this has been in my subconscious. COVID, like for many of us, gave me a time to reflect, and I immediately went into writing the book on a couple of reasons. One, I'm incredibly aware that there's a lot of young people paying attention to my moves, are fans of what I do, and I thought it would be a disservice if I wasn't incredibly aggressive in my communication on the things that I see as a winning formula. It becomes double important when I realize that most people don't talk about kindness as the single alpha skill in building a successful empire. And I thought it was a unique take. It's also very nuanced. The reason the subtitle is ingredients is when I was going through my process, I realized, oh, I never just deploy empathy. I never just deploy patience. In every situation, it's actually 3 or 4 different traits, often traits that are in a conflict with each other. It's very interesting to be tenacious and ambitious while being patient. And so I liked the concept of ingredients because it's like cooking a meal. I think we all believe that sweet and sour chicken is something that is delicious, but sweet and sour can see a conflict. So I felt that I was the right person at the right time. And what has transpired in the last 18 months, because I wrote the book very quickly in the beginning of COVID, obviously it takes time for it to come out and things of that nature. Many of us are thinking about things in the business world around the concept of the Great Resignation and the concept of people even applying into businesses in the first place in a world of options. I think the importance of being a leader that understands these traits has even compounded in the last 18 months since I even wrote it, which feels serendipitous and exciting for me. And I really hope that people also, if they read it, realize this is not a book that is meant to over-coddle the millennials or Gen Z. This is truly believing that this is the alpha infrastructure to building significantly large, successful businesses. What blows my mind is people's inability to put in the work in the face of information. All of you know that this blockchain thing is brewing. You've definitely heard about Bitcoin at this point. You've probably maybe heard of Ethereum. It's happening, and it's gonna affect this industry soonest. This is the book industry for the internet. The blockchain is contracts. Please understand that. Please, it's a very important thing. Please spend 15 hours Googling Ethereum and smart contracts. Get educated, not to play defense, but to play offense. You do 15 to 30 hours of homework, you might just change your career. You might shift slightly in what you're doing now to something else. It's a remarkable time, and one thing I know about an immigrant-centric reality is it's not scared to put in the work. And I really know this statement. It likes to pick which work it wants to do. People don't like change. And change is the only guarantee. What the blockchain eventually will do is change the face of what brokerages, leverages in the ecosystem. Right now is the time to build your personal brand on the internet, and I mean right now. How you do that can be totally different. You don't need to be over the top or curse like me. You need to be you. I'm me, you be you. But what you need to do is start producing content to educate people on who you are. If you're uncomfortable with the way you look and you don't want to be on video, then do audio and do a podcast. If you're not sure that you can handle the camera, then write on LinkedIn or Facebook. If you feel more comfortable being the hostess with the mostest, start a Facebook group regionally within your area. One of the greatest arbitrages in this industry right now is starting a Facebook group for the local area where you sell around the town, not around selling homes, bringing people in, building community, and then just happening to be the person that's hosting that group and picking up the business. These are the black and white tactics available to you. How you build your team and how much empathy you have for the consumer on the other side is the other variable. But the opportunity is staggering. It is staggering. The speed in which people are changing what they consume, which then dictates what they think, which then dictates how they buy, is at a level we've never seen before. I come here, fly across the country and fly back for one reason, to put so much pressure on this room to do the homework. To do the homework. I mean it. The opportunity is so real. You are literally one, because I'm on the receiving end of these messages. You're one viral TikTok video away from selling 13 homes because of it. And you don't go in there and start doing the latest dance. You're trying to sell homes. And you're more than welcome to shake your ass, fine, but it's a lot more interesting to talk about what you want to talk about, but making it contextual to the room. People say no so much. TikTok's fastest growing demo is 38 to 55-year-olds. You can still think it's 12-year-olds. It hasn't been 12-year-olds for 2 years. That's the game of no versus the game of yes. That's the game of staying curious. The biggest vulnerability to people in business today trying to sell to human beings is their unbelievable calmness and interest in saying the word no, and their visceral reaction to the idea of maybe. The innovation that we're living through is big. The opportunity is even bigger. But this requires homework. Before you decide that content on social media can't sell for you, did you really do the 20 hours of homework and the 50 hours of you doing it? It doesn't count when you have your niece do 6 posts for you. This world is reading about push-ups instead of doing them. I wish, actually, that's actually not even true. I wish this was a game of people reading about push-ups and not doing it. We're not even reading about push-ups. We're dismissing push-ups before we even read about them. I ask you and implore you here today, my friends, to open up your heart to curiosity, to open up your eyes to the reality of what's happening in our society and how people are making their decisions, and to shed your preconceived notions and start putting in the work. For a lot of us, me included, it was easy to put in the hard labor, right? It was easy to put in the work. It's much more challenging to figure out the new technologies. The problem is the world doesn't care about you and me. The world's gonna do what the world does. And the way people are gonna make buying decisions are gonna be based on the people they see here. Period. End of story. And if you're not showing up here in 2022, you're not showing up. I believe that we are born with a lot of our traits. I believe we are then parented, and some of the traits go up and down. I believe we are environments of our neighborhood, our country, our culture. When I tell you the thing that comes least natural to me in the world is candor one-on-one, and for me to see where I am today as a 46-year-old man, everybody in this room has the ability to grow in many of these attributes. Most don't want to put in the work. Most would prefer not to do the things that come hard to them. Most would hope that it goes unnoticed. Nothing goes unnoticed. People may not tell you, but nothing goes unnoticed. I believe in the human spirit. The world is very black and white to me on this one. People evolve. People change. People can get stronger at certain things. People can get weaker at certain things. And so I am incredibly optimistic on humans' capacity to evolve. What it requires is first acknowledging its truth, seeing it. One of the reasons I produce the content that I produce is with the hopes that when I do this right now, literally when I tell you that I'm just hopeful that one person in this room is listening and something triggers, one, because that's profound. Saying a couple of sentences that shift a person's perspective, which allows them to start building towards a better place for themselves and the people they love, is a great gift. And I take on that responsibility. And I think everybody in this room who is fortunate enough to be in a happy place has a requirement to start communicating it. Because we live in a world today where negativity is incredibly loud and positivity tends to be silent. And I think if you are positive, you have an obligation to your fellow man to communicate it and make it louder. Do I believe that work ethic is a foundational piece of success? Yes, I do. Do I want anybody ever to work so much that they get depressed? Of course not. I never think that money is the driver. And so I think whether it's lazy headline reading or not doing homework, yeah, it's not been the most fun to get dragged into.
No, I was like on my phone reading that article. No, and there's so many people who are proof of the words that you say, me included. So yeah, it's like, oh man.
Listen, there's a byproduct of success.
Yeah.
You know, where people will, hustle porn is a term, leveragepreneur is a term. Leveragepreneur is when you're using other people to build yourself up at the cost of the other person. And, I think that as you get bigger, people will leverage you. And I'm okay with that because the truth always wins in the end.
Right.
And, I know the body of work that I've put out, my intent. And if you want to clip one thing or one definitive statement from one talk without the context of the whole thing, of course you can say anybody says anything. But the reality is that, I believe work ethic is important if you want to achieve hyperbolic success. I don't want to tell people how to be happy.
Yeah.
So why are you telling me how I should be happy? And there's plenty of people that are super depressed that work 40 hours a week. Like, it's just hyperbolized link baiting, leveragepreneuring, and I'm okay with that. But at the same token, it's important not to not take other people's points of view into account. And I'm in a constant, focus of that as well. My belief is that fear is powerful, and however you were brought up or what your ideology is on safety, you put having a job on a pedestal as something that's secure. The logic for all of us listening to you right now is if you're making double what you make in there, it seems like a very obvious step, but I'm empathetic that you're scared to make that jump. My thing to remind you and people out there in a similar situation is it's not very hard to get another job if you fail, if you leave this job. And so for me, if we were friends and we talked all the time, the thing I would always remind you every day is if you take the leap of faith and some reason it doesn't work, which by the way, if you're making double your salary as a side hustle, if you give 100% of your time to that, I have a funny feeling it's going to work out. But I would remind you that you could always go and get a job again in the same industry, maybe for a different company. Believe it or not, and I've seen this sometimes for the same company because they missed you, that's what I would pound into your head because whatever you grew up with, it created an ideology that a job was safe. Does that make sense to you, Mo?
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Thank you very much.
Listen, before you leave, you need to re-listen to that over and over and over. Every human being is the byproduct of what they listen to. So if you're listening to your parents or a +1 or somebody else that's saying, no, don't make the jump, you're not gonna make the jump. If you listen to somebody who's saying something practical like take the jump and oh, by the way, if it doesn't work, you can always go back and if it fails, who cares about other people's judgment? Then you'll jump. This is a very simple business conversation. If you want to sell things, it's a good idea to make it easier for people to buy from you. And so the innovation is the mindset. The innovation is going home now and deciding what you just saw in this talk and saying, is he right or is he wrong? And if you find yourself saying, he's right, but I don't want to, I really mean this, that's okay. But then you have to be honest with yourself of where you are in your career, whether that means maybe doing something else because you don't have fire for it, or being content, which is fine, a beautiful thing if you're content, but you have to be aware that this is all happening around you. I don't have to tell this room how much innovation is going on in this space. You've got the biggest technology companies in the world interested in your money. I know what the big tech companies are doing. I know what's happening with blockchain. I know what's happening with the 20-year-olds that everybody makes fun of who are picking up incredible market share from a lot of you because they're actually being seen on social. They may not know the business yet, and you love making fun of them for that. I got bad news for you. That they'll figure out.
Yeah, no, that's. May need to take a pause on that one.
People make fun of things until they don't. Everybody made fun of the Kardashians until they didn't. Everybody made fun of Tesla till they didn't. Everybody made fun of my pictures until they sold for $1 million today on Christie's.
Congratulations.
People love to make fun of things. And what I'm worried about is this room's too successful.
That's a great
Success is the beginning of the end.
What are some of those, you've spoken candidly about your parents and the meticulous upbringing. What are some of the things they taught you that now even get you to sit here and give back in such a fashion?
I think gratitude is the reason I give back. I think the single reason I want to put out all the content and do things like, I'm very compensated for a speech like this, but no longer does that make financial sense to me in my business world. It's just amazing to be here with all of you. I love it. Why? Because I know how I communicate. I know that I come here with an agenda, and that agenda is to suffocate one person in this room's bullshit with the hope that it's exactly what they needed to go do something, so that in 4 years they could send me an email and say, I was in San Diego in 2021 and I thought I was hot shit, but then you got me, and then I got my shit together. And now my family's so much better. And that feeling for me is better than even when I'm winning. So my selfishness is my selflessness. It's fun for me. I'm already good. It's very easy to give when you're fulfilled.
Sure.
Right? And so for me, what happened? My family heritage was crazy up. My mom lost her mom at 5. My dad lost his dad at 16. We lived in the Soviet Union. A lot of people don't know this. I didn't realize how many people don't know this. You weren't allowed to leave the country. The country was a prison from 1918 to 1990. A prison. You weren't allowed to leave. Leave. Everybody spent time in jail because the government owned everything. Cuba and Venezuela are a vacation compared to the Soviet Union in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. So, here I am. We left in 78. I'm growing up in America, and this is gonna really hit for this room. I'm growing up in America, but am I really? Because in my 4 walls, it's Russia. Right? But I have both, right? So in the house, all I'm hearing every Friday night and on the weekends is the stories of the old country, and it's a disaster. And I'm out here drinking Coca-Cola and watching Mickey Mouse. And so very quickly, I'm just thankful. I'm just grateful. And so gratitude was big. The other thing they taught me was the story looked like this. 6th grade, Nintendo explodes, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, Mom, Nintendo. And she's like, good, go get it. And so, that framework gets you serious about lemonade and washing cars and shoveling snow. And so my parents taught me a level of work ethic that I would, in hindsight at 45, say was probably too extreme. The 3 of us talk about it a lot. I think all of us collectively look at each other and say, maybe we took it to 130. 100 would have been fine. 80 would have been fine. We lived in 130. I worked, from the time I was 14, I worked every weekend and every summer vacation day of my life. All of them. Like when people hear it, I don't think they understand all of them. Not like kind of, like you meet people, they're like, they helped out in their family business every day. I was a terrible student. My parents sat me down at 14 and they're like, you're not going to Harvard, so you're gonna work every day. And so work ethic was taught. And then I had such a gift of communicating that my father really, really impacted my life because he has no tolerance for lying. And I had an incredible ability to manipulate everyone on earth. And when you're young and you realize you have gift of gab, you have no idea how to fully function with it, right? And so my dad really helped me because I was so scared of him. And for my father, embellishing or a slight exaggeration was like a death blow. He keeps it so straight, and that really helped me a lot. I think about that a lot. I was gifted with so many things, but it really worked out for me on how they parented me. But it all comes down to gratitude. When I tell you the only thing on earth I care about is the health of my family, it is the only thing I care about. Everything I do in business is a game. I don't give a shit. Money, all of it, health. This is hard. The concept of teaching someone to be more self-aware is something I've been thinking about for a long time. You know, I think the thing that drives so many of us crazy in the world is interacting with those that struggle with self-awareness. I think one of the hardest things for people to deal with is hypocrisy. We struggle with it, and I struggle with it. The exercise in the book that I decided to do was creating frameworks for the people that know you the best to create a safe space for them to be able to tell you the truth. I think one of the reasons people struggle with self-awareness is because they have enablers around them that are allowing them to get away with bad behavior. And so I'm spending a lot of time trying to think about how one puts the people that knows them the best in a safe place to actually give them the critical feedback that could be the jarrer of a journey towards self-awareness. It's a very tough challenge. I don't know if I have the answer. What I can tell you is, no question, the business leaders that I admire, the human beings that I admire, are the ones who are off the charts in self-awareness. I'm incredibly grateful for the luck of the DNA game that I think gave me a lot of it. I would argue that the only reason I have any level of popularity is because of self-awareness, because of the kind of communicator I am and my personality. I would be completely not palpable if I didn't have high levels of self-awareness, because I have some really funny attributes as a communicator. And so it's a conversation we need more of. I do think that self-awareness has a very interesting relationship with accountability. I think that a lot of people actually know what their shortcomings are, but they try to navigate the world in a way where they are hoping that people don't notice. And it's something I'm thinking a lot about. I'm a big believer that the world is doing a bad job in not allowing people to grieve. When there are events that I'm assuming are happening here, my friend, which I'm so sorry for, I don't think the world does a good job on allowing to grieve. For example, you would think me, Mr. Rah-rah positive, go, 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 happy, look on the bright side, would be the first person to overwhelm you when something like that happens, to be like, no, it's okay, they want you to keep going, they're looking down and they wouldn't want you. Like, I feel like I, on paper, look exactly like the person that would be at the forefront of the, no, let's start the rest of your life, and they're looking down at you and they love you, and like, which I have those thoughts, comma, at 46 years old with the gray hairs, my belief is that we need to collectively, as 8 billion people, create a better conversation around grieving. I really do. I, for instance, feel no pressure on getting back to work when I have a moment like that happen in my life. I really don't. I will grieve, because I haven't been through it, it might take me an hour, because I could see that, knowing my chemicals, and it could take me 4 months, and I can see that, and by the way, let's all call a spade a spade. The circumstances also are a major variable. Like, how did you lose someone? Is it a tragic, ridiculously unfortunate accident that's gonna hit you different than a long drawn out illness? Like, there's a million ways to think this through. Did you have time to reconcile it because it was a drawn out illness? Or was that even more challenging because it was like a cloud for 2 years? There's just so many what was your relationship with that person? Of course, like, you know, people have parents and siblings and spouses and children and loved ones, but I don't think anybody here is confused. We have different relationships with the closest people in our lives that are different than our friends and family. My relationship with my mother couldn't be more different than my dad's relationship with his. And so there's a lot of variables that go into this. I often find that regret is a huge driver of how someone reacts. This is why I over push people to over communicate with the people they love. I think a lot of us get into our patterns. It was easier for me to talk to my parents when I had an hour commute from New York to New Jersey in Wine Library for 5 years than it is today. I think about it daily. Like, do I feel good about how often I'm talking to the people I love, knowing that everyone has an expiration date? My friend, the answer to the question is, give yourself time to grieve. It's just okay. It's the most profound, there's two profound moments in life. The moment someone is born and the moment that someone dies. There's a lot of interesting stuff in between, weddings and other things, but that's it. At its core, that's it. And I think that they should be understood and we should go deeper into them. And I think we have to be more supportive of grieving and letting people go through it. Obviously you want to be supportive and some people get into a spiral. There's people that are more positive by nature. There's people that are more negative. So there's so many nuances to this question, but I'm a big fan of one thing, like a big fan. I say it a lot. I think that people judge themselves too much. I just think all of you are beating yourself up too much about things. The things you're not, or, my sister's back to work and doing great. Why am I sitting in this dark room sad about my dad? Because that's how you feel, and that's okay. And I think we need to have that combo. A lot of people get hurt by the ideology of perfection. So I think one of the reasons, long before I had D-Rock or a team, I was able to, by myself, while running businesses, be active on every platform, is because I didn't ideologically think about every single piece of content. I think when you're trying to make every piece perfect for yourself, perfection is usually just another word for insecurity. Everyone's overthinking it. And so one, it's to feel comfortable with that. Number two is to be okay with not being on 6 platforms. I think sometimes we feel too much pressure to be everywhere. I talk about it, I'm like, be everywhere, post a lot. A lot of people can't manage that, and that's okay. I believe it has to do with insecurity of success of the piece of content. The biggest reason people didn't go to TikTok when they were winning on Instagram was they didn't have the humility and the self-confidence to not be successful on TikTok immediately. So I think the biggest reason people don't produce is more of a mental game than, it's not hard to produce content for 6 platforms. It's really not. You can do it. It's that people fear lack of success in numbers from a vanity standpoint, which stop them from actually doing it. So I think humility is one of the true superpowers of a scaled influencer or content creator. Being okay with starting at 0 or being okay if the content's not doing great. Talent without work ethic was a wasted opportunity. You understand? Yeah. It's a wasted opportunity. Yeah. I just think about that all the time. How many people had loads of talent that either didn't fight to find it? I'm always curious about that. Like, who was the greatest painter of all time, but she or he never decided to paint?
Gave up. Yeah.
Not even gave up.
Just didn't even
go.
Didn't even cross their mind.
Novak Djokovic, when I was chopping with him, had there not been a tennis court behind his family's
never went out.
Restaurant, he would have never gone there, and instead he would have been into skiing. He's the greatest, he's gonna be, when it's all said and done, the greatest male tennis player of all time. The serendipity of a tennis court, like, I think about that. This is why I push curiosity so heavy. Like, just try some. If you said no, I don't sing, and just stayed home and played video games or whatever,
We don't know what would have happened.
I know what would have happened. All the good shit that's happened the last 2 years wouldn't have happened. That's what I know, that part wouldn't have happened.
That's true.
The biggest vulnerability in this room is not being smart enough or being hungry enough. It's just actually not knowing how to dominate when it comes to people relationships. You know, I think most people that would be in a room like this, if you're here, you're doing shit. Let there be no confusion. If you're here, you're doing shit, right? You know, especially for somebody, if you're 24 hours into feeling like, oh, Carl's really crushing it or Susan's doing it, if you feel any level of like that, you're completely confused, because if you're here, you're doing it, right? The question is, how big is doing it? And what do you actually want? And I think the thing that I would really try to land first before I go into other subject matters is, you'd be stunned how much your personal upside is being capped if you aren't profoundly kind to the people that work for you. It is a very grandma statement. It's a very kind of like foofy kind of like, the world is kind, but it is profoundly impactful. And so I would bet the farm that many dozens of people in here are dicks to their team. I would bet the farm on it. It is just the way the business world is. It's the way society is. And I beg for the people in here as I'm going on this subject matter, if it gives you any thoughts or feelings, if you want it for you, I promise you that what's happening underneath you and how you're setting the tone and what you're doing is a huge impact on your zeros. This is not about entitlement and letting people get lazy and like silly non-results things. This is about building empires. This is about building big empires, but you would be stunned, I believe. And the reason this is an important subject matter is, I'm sure at this point, plenty of people have heard about the Great Resignation, right? Because of COVID. The thing that I'm way more worried about as all of you go on your journey to build the things that you want to build is the great never applying in the first place. The amount of options 17, 19, 22-year-olds have going into the world, and they're aware of it, of how easy, that will be the word I use, it is to make $60,000 a year flipping on eBay, making content on TikTok, dabbling in NFT land. There are so many more options than what we grew up with if you're over 35 here, that it's profound and people are missing what's actually happening. And this is an absolute subject matter that I hope you take very seriously. If you are not focused on retention, people actually wanting to stay, if you are not focused on retention first, you will lose. And when I say lose, you'll still win, but you'll lose upside that you can't even see. I believe it's simplicity. I really do. I think for the people that know me in my life, I'm really simple. You know, I really enjoy my career. I love this. Like you couldn't even imagine how humbled I am by people's interest in what I talk about. But I think the key to happiness is being content while being ambitious. And I think being content comes from gratitude. I'm so grateful for what I have, and I've always been that way, that all this special stuff that has been happening doesn't mean enough to me. This is not where my self-worth comes in. The Gary Vee crap and the claps and the follower, like it's incredible, but it's not what I aspire to. It's not how I see my value. And I think the only way to be happy is to have a quiet mind. And I think a quiet mind comes from a balance of very deep humility and true perspective of understanding that you just genuinely understand that you don't mean in the scheme of things, but you aspire in your behavior to mean something. And I think it's a very interesting balance, and I think it works incredibly well. I just wish people are just impossibly addicted to outside affirmation, to acceptance. And I wish people lived in their own cocoon and just did the things that made them happy. So many people would aspire to make so much less money if they didn't care about what other people think, and would be dramatically happier. And I wish that on society. And this is clear for me, because I got gray hairs, boys, now. Like I've been living it now. I'm 46 now. Now I felt this at 16, but I know it at 46. Number one, accountability. This is gonna set you free, whether it's true or not in every situation. If you always know that it's always your fault, it sounds crazy, but that will keep you crazy happy. The amount of athletes I've met that blame coaches, even at the professional level, blows my mind. There are dudes in this room who always are talking shit, blaming coach. Right now, I see some of these good looking faces. I know behind that face, I'm like, that kid right there. You know, like it's real. Do not blame anybody but yourself. It will make you happy. It's a huge mindset. Number two, I am blown away by people's entitlement. Just because your mom and dad had sex at the right exact second to give you athletic ability doesn't mean nobody owes you shit. So accountability, first accountability, second, eliminating entitlement. Nothing is owed to any of y'all. It is what it is. It's like sports. It's a game. So just because somebody gave you a scholarship or gave you an at-bat, it's you. You're not owed anything. Coach, if you've got real accountability, like this is on me, and you don't think anybody else owes you shit, the last one is in a different school, but all together, those three change people's lives. The third one is simple, which is be nice. This is a crazy one, especially at this age. If you realized how life actually plays out, and you will one day when you're 60, 70, 80, the number one hack, the smartest move, be kind, which is why, Coach, earlier I said be nice to yourself, because nobody's nice to anybody else if they don't like themselves. The only people in here that are mean, trying to tear down others, because they're hurting. When people are tearing down other people, that just exposes that they're hurt. But if you're lucky enough to feeling good, give roses to people, because people are gonna be the fuel that gets you there. There is no such thing as work-life balance. Every family is different. There is no such thing called balance. You're the judge and the jury, just like a medium-sized business or a small business. We do these things to make ourselves upset. We have to stop. How do you balance it? By trying. You try. You try to go to the recital. You try to go to the parent-teacher conference. You try to run your business. You try.
And if you try your hardest and can't do it, you should not judge yourself.
What is can't?
Yeah.
What's can't do it? What does that even mean? You missed a baseball game? Come on. The kids can have you miss a baseball game. It's true. It's true. Every single person here has 9,700 things they can think of that their parents f***ed up and they still love them. And oh, by the way, forgot 8 trillion things their parents did that were f***ed up. We are in some crazy dynamic of like overanalyzing everything so much with a layer of cynicism that is making everybody go crazy. If you are a good person and you're trying, truly trying, and not trying to hurt anybody, you're phenomenal. Enough.
How do we eliminate that outside noise? Sometimes, you walk.
By not caring about other people's opinions once and for all. High school is over. Stop playing in it. It's over. You left. You're not in high school. You are, I know, but everybody else, stop. It's over. What? Who? Your mom? Tell your mom to go f herself. She f***ed up too. What? Your spouse? Like, what? Who? What? Just living for other people's judgment. Everybody else sucks too.
Now, if you're gonna tell your mom that, how do you have the courage to have that kind of conversation with her?
Because you don't say it the way I'm saying it, you say it a different way. You say, Mom, I appreciate your opinion of how I'm being a father. How about the time you did this? That shuts them up real fast.
I love it, I love it.
Like, I just don't understand how people are so deeply into this affirmation culture, keeping up with the Joneses. It's just really a problem, and it's getting worse by the second. And news alert, it's not social media's fault, it's your fault. This lack of accountability is disgusting. We have to go deeper, and we have to be more optimistic and positive. We have to become more optimistic and positive. You know why? You get to decide life. Just so you know, news alert, you're deciding what life actually is. It is your subjective call. And if you're like, well, Gary, you, I grew up in a family that was very pessimistic and this is what it is, well then, what do you want? Then go to therapy, right? Like, do something. Fight for it. Fight to be happy. Listen to positive. That's a funny game. Miraculous thing happens when you cut out your most pessimistic friend, you become more optimistic. And let me tell you about complaining. The only people that are listening to your complaining are people that extremely love you but are enablers, or your other loser friends and you're just complaining to each other. First and foremost, the number one thing as you think about how you're spending your money to make more money, AKA marketing, you have to take your personal opinions off the table. The number one reason so many people struggle is because they say dumb shit like, well, I don't like TikTok. Who gives a f, Carl, do you like money? This is the profoundly most fundamentally silly thing that I hear every day of my life. Gary, I don't get YouTube, but trillions of people do. I don't like it. You probably don't like a lot of things you do every day. If you're here, my favorite thing about a group here is that you eat a lot of shit every day to make it happen. There's plenty of things you don't like. This is not about what you like or what your opinion is of a platform or you don't like technology. I mean, some people try to go so lofty with me. Gary, I'm not doing it because it's bad for the kids, right? Like, or they go political. It's like looking for any excuse not to put in the work to something they don't understand yet. And so for me, when I look at the landscape of what's happening in the world, the speed in which attention is shifting is profound. Facebook and Google, Twitter and YouTube, TikTok, these things are moving so fast. You know it. You know, TikTok came out of nowhere for most of you in the last 24 months. Elon bought Twitter yesterday. This stuff is just moving. It's moving and it's moving fast. And you have to understand that even more importantly than balancing your checkbook is your ability to understand where your customer's attention is and how to make pictures, videos, the written word, audio to get in front of them and do business. And for a lot of people that are winning, the quickest way they lose market share is by being outflanked by competitors doing contemporary work when they got cozy because they were winning. This today is about business. You can do it however you want to do it. When I start this conversation with the first 10 minutes around culture and how you treat people, I'm not joking about what I said. I know a lot of people struggle with that here. They don't work hard enough to your standards. They shouldn't. They don't make as much money as you do. Like people email me all the time, how do I get my employees to work as hard as me? I'm like, help them start their own business. I appreciate that. These are the important conversations. Because when you win this, when you figure out how to build an actual team, you can scale. I can do a lot of things, but you can only do so much. So many of you are carrying way too much stuff because you're not building teams. You're a micromanager, you're insecure, you're not building up retention. You can't create scale. It's only people. It's people. And so that's a huge combo. Could you imagine living a life where you're actually interested in making somebody else feel bad? The f is that?
Michael Gonzalez, please report to room 213. Michael Gonzalez.
They call you the office chief.
I swear to God, I heard that speaker just go on, and Frog, I swear to God, I hated school so much that hairs just went up back of my neck. Like, thank God I don't hear that no more. No, but listen, this is a big one because all of you are gonna get this because I hope you all stay healthy and stay motivated and you get to that place. You guys are all getting close to where you're gonna get a lot of internet love, right? You guys aren't far away from getting that gas. Just remember this, I hope you remember this. Somebody taking time out of their day to leave a comment to try to hurt your feelings, feel bad for those people. Not on some like egotistical Actually be a human being and be compassionate. Understand how much that person's life isn't happy, that they need to go make somebody else unhappy to be on some misery loves company shit. My perspective on this is it's no different than kissing a bunch of frogs until you find your prince. No different than dating or friendships. You know, all of us at this point watching this video have gone through friendships and potentially relationships, and the reality is some new kid moves in 4th grade, you think you're gonna be friends, the first couple days are good, and then the 3rd day she or he shows you that they're not a nice person and you walk away, which is fine. No different than interests and passions. You know, the reality is that I went skiing once back, 15 years ago, and it was fine. I kind of liked it. I was surprised I was decent by the 3rd day, but it wasn't a passion of mine, and it's not something I want to allocate instead of going garage sailing. That's okay. You're also extremely young, and the reality is that I wouldn't beat yourself up or overjudge yourself just because you didn't fall in love with cooking or being a yoga teacher or being into concrete manufacturing. The reality is you still haven't found it. That's awesome. There's nothing wrong with that. You're getting judged by people who've settled. This is an incredibly important point in our society. Normally, the people that will cast judgment on someone who's still trying to explore are people who themselves settled without exploring and are subconsciously deploying misery loves company. Just to give you context of what just happened, that just sucked the air out of the room with my team behind this camera because it's such a profound point that I've not really made this articulately, and it's very important for all of you. If you continue to be fighting to find your happiness and you find yourself getting judgment from your inner circle, I promise you, many of them just gave up and they are envious, and subconsciously, they're good people. These are your parents, these are your best friends, these are your siblings. They're not intending to be mean, tear you down, stop you, conform you into settling like they did, but that's exactly what they're doing, so that there be no confusion. Your inner circle, society, is incredibly subconsciously interested in you conforming. I talk about these thematics a lot, and I will repeat them to my death. The best way to go from a small business to a medium business is by deploying patience and doing what you did to get to become a small business. Of course there's strategies. I've been very consistent about this. For 15 years I put out a very simple message that has been uncomfortably historically true. If you understand where the customer's attention is and you know how to make pictures, videos, and written words for those platforms, you will grow. For that gentleman's business, if he got great at LinkedIn ads, his top line revenue would grow. The question is, how's he judging himself? By the way, what is even a small or medium business? Like, what are the rules of all this? Is 5 million small? Is 50 million medium? Like, what is this? I'm sure there's some answer to it if you Google it, but everybody's answer is different, right? Like what? Like, it's these constant games of making these things for us. You know what that is? That's the 90-day school grade. The are you trying to do for tomorrow? What is that? He's gonna make his own subjective call if he's a medium business or a small business. We're playing dumb games out here.
Oh my gosh. I love it. I love it. Gary, you speak a lot.
What's a medium-sized business?
Honest to God, I'm with you. Who effing knows?
But really, is it 50? Somebody help, what's a medium-sized business? No, revenue, not people. 5 million bucks, somebody just said. That's a medium-sized business. That's small as to me. That's a bullshit business.
Yeah, perspective.
But this is important to understand. I'm not right. I'm not cool. I'm not special. It just doesn't work for my brain. For somebody else, $1 million's insane. That's insane. Do you know how hard it is to build $1 million business? And oh, by the way, what about the fact that you change over time? What about 23, a $5 million business is a medium-sized business, but then you're 36 and it's not, or it goes down. Like, we play in these semantics that don't mean anything except make us anxious. We have such interesting macro theses in our society that are crippling people, and the reason there's so much anxiety in the system now is we're all living our lives in public forums and now taking on more judgment, not less. I don't hear any of you. Let me say it one more time. How many people here with my content and they love it? Let me hear you. Can't hear you. Can't hear you. Let me say it one more time. For all the people here who think I walk on water, I'm the best, I'm such a great dude, I can't hear you. Let me explain why. Not you, bro. Let me explain to you why I can't hear you. Because I have no interest on getting high on my own supply. The reason I can't hear you is the same reason that I can't hear the person that leaves a comment that says I'm a snake oil salesman, or my cursing is inappropriate, or I suck, or I'm gonna burn out, or whatever else. I can't hear that face either. And when, over the next 50 years of my life, I figure out how to produce more communications to help you not hear it either, that is when I will start having more significant impact, because when you don't hear anything, and I don't mean from just Fatty Pants 63, I mean from your dad. I mean from your spouse. When you, my friends in Phoenix, on a Wednesday, going into 2019, when you stop hearing things, gets remarkable. I think the lack of accountability is leading to so much unhappiness. Like, life is so much better when you're like, this was my fault.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're in control.
Yeah.
And so, like, you know, this was like a wrap up to control. You're in control.
Yeah.
You decide what you consume. You decide what you believe. You decide who you surround yourself with. You decide what you put out. Take on accountability.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to blame right now. The algorithm, they're acting as the algorithms are like hypnosis. And I understand endorphin hits and all that, but like, you can delete the app. You can. Like, where's accountability in this?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, we have alcohol, we have tobacco, we have drugs, we have weapons, and we have all sorts of issues, but most people play within moderation. That's on you.
Yeah. And it's a tough truth, right? It's a tough truth.
Especially when you're unhappy.
Yeah.
That goes back to why it's important. It's like the chicken and egg. It's like working out. Like, I got into better shape the last 8 years. Nothing comes less natural to me.
Yeah, tell me.
Nothing comes less natural to me.
I can relate to you.
Right? But like, I was like, I just would like to live longer.
Yes.
I would just like to live longer.
Yeah.
And go figure, it's not apple cider gummies. It's not steroids. It's not implants. I've thought about it. I'm like, can I get chest implants? I put in a lot of work. I feel like I've like, Seth's good. Like, I feel like I've done more than Seth, but like my body type, like, you know, and I'm like, I probably haven't, but no, it's like, eat well, go in the gym, do the right things. And so same for life. You know, whether it's meditation, whether it's exercise, whether it's therapy, whether it's good conversations, whether it's surrounding, you know, back to us not having the serendipity, you know, we've had some meals, we've had some interactions. They're always like, they're nice.
We need more.
I would like that.
Yeah,
and
like
we'll
that
build
too.
on that. I think, you know, I'm spending more time thinking about spending more time with more while doubling down on core, you know? You know, because I did a really good job in the last 10 years of doubling down on core, but I think being as busy, and I love what I do, you know, I really do want to build out more of a friend network. I want to take more people from lightweight acquaintance to solid acquaintance. I want to take people from acquaintance to friend, from friend to best friend. And so I'm on a journey like everybody else, but I think that, I think, believe it or not, and this is going to sound so crazy for so many, the world actually has so much potential for everybody listening to be the best time to be alive. Medicine and technology, and there's so much, but we're caught right now. It's like a hamster wheel. We're in the momentum of focusing on, you know, the bad.
Yeah.
And there's always bad.
Yeah.
The Holocaust was bad. Genocide is always going on. Genghis Khan was not a fun time to be a human.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like we are very bad at history. I was a really bad student, but I did well in history. Like, but that starts with you. What are you going to do about it? Because right now everyone's like pointing and feels like it's on someone else.
Yeah.
It starts with ourselves.
I mean, when you said that and you brought up the Holocaust, I recently read Edith Eger's book, The Gift. She lived through the Holocaust. And she had that mindset in the Holocaust. So she said the only way she got through it is she realized that she wasn't a prisoner, that the only prisoners were the guards, because they were prisoners of their own conscience.
Unbelievable.
That was her mindset.
She's right.
And you know, she's like over 90 now or even older. And it's like, it's just phenomenal that her, Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning, these two phenomenal books, if anyone hasn't read them, like they had that in that scenario.
Well, that's the point I always make to everybody. Like, the only thing that works for me is trying to contextualize moments in time.
Yeah.
And our great-great-great-grandparents had it rough by comparison to the way we have it. And sure, they had some things that were better on simplicity, but we must choose optimism, because what's the alternative? Yeah. Pessimism? Like, are you just going to decide? Because once you decide, where are you? Once you decide it's bad, it's actually bad. And so one of the things that makes me very passionate to communicate is practical optimism, or the fact that I believe negativity is much better at marketing than positivity.
Oh, for sure.
I feel a huge sense of responsibility. How in the world can a human being be tired of admiration? It's too humbling. I live a life where people think it's cool to take a picture with me. That's ludicrous. That's incredible. I will never figure out how not to lean into my humility. But that humility comes from a mindset that starts with deep self-esteem and deep understanding that other people's judgments actually have zero impact on your life. And I get to be the byproduct of tremendous parenting to have that mindset. Not everybody had that. My father didn't. I know how my grandmother raised him, and I watch how his actions go based on that. So I stand here, Orlando, today with deep gratitude for the way I was built. When I hear the accolades, when those cheers come, it's so easy for me to default into you're cheering me as a byproduct of a whole lot of great circumstances, a whole lot of good parenting, which doesn't allow me to get high or ever have an ego of not the humility. I'm the byproduct. I am desperate to figure out how to put sentences together to get you to understand how much that's the game. The reason I'm not interested in talking about becoming a millionaire is because I know thousands of millionaires who are miserable as What I'm interested in is trying to figure out how to get you to understand why it's so fun for me to play in the dirt. What I'm interested in is, why does this work for me? Why did it work for me? Why does it work for other people that I see? Right. Because most people have no interest in putting in the deep hours of work required to actually be successful. There's a really dirty secret in the strategy world of Bain and McKinsey, where if you really get them drunk, they admit that the actions lead to the strategy, not the other way around. That's my answer to you. How? I make decisions. And then I try to look at my calendar the week ahead and see if any of the decisions I made 4 weeks earlier that made me think this was a good use of time, am I able to move something, cut something down? I'm extremely thoughtful about cutting times of meetings. So one of the things I think that really make me successful is understanding a 7-minute meeting is real and not just making it a 30-minute meeting. But the real reason is because I don't overthink it. I'm operating my business, I'm in it. How do I decide between going to dinner with Kevin Hart because I can and I want to build top of the funnel brand, or do I go take a mid-level client that I'm trying to build a relationship with? It's, you ask every normal person, it seems like those aren't super close, but I can touch the pulse and be like, I'm going to LA 4 more times in the next 3 months. The biggest mistakes I make are the ones of missed opportunities of the things by being crippled by opportunity. When you actually level that all up, my friend, it really is liberating. You will never even come close to making the right decision. I mean it. You just don't know what the alternative would be. People think that there's a right answer. You as an operator of your business, make the right call that feels right at that moment and just move. And people spend all this time and money on trying to think that there's a proper answer. I play on the extremes. I spend as much time as possible on the things that are showing me the most offense, right? However you're doing your customer acquisition to get to a hundo on a product like that, whether it's Facebook, whether it's brand, and then I spend the amount of time on my biggest vulnerability. Putting my finger in the holes to make sure the boat doesn't sink, and building a bigger boat, and nothing in the middle. And knowing that I'm making that judgment at all times, and the second I get new data a week later, I might have to completely change what I thought was right the week before. It's also why I spend a ton of time with my employees. The reason I'm an HR-driven CEO is if you really understand this, both your biggest growth and your biggest vulnerabilities are actually your own team. So I think it's a lack of, it starts with the ability not to overjudge yourself, because that is the liberator of the model I just broke down for you. I am incredibly private, as you know, and the world knows. Because I'm going through a transition in my life, I felt like it got to a place where it was not sustainable for me to be 100% private. And so I've been a little more public. It is something that I'm desperately not interested in. Even the part we just talked about with my kids, like it's not somewhere I want to go. I don't want to go. I don't want to talk about my kids. I don't want to talk about my personal. We can cut a little bit. No, I want you to keep this. And I'll tell you why. I want to remind people you're in control. It's incredibly important and appropriate, and I appreciate, especially you being very cordial for people to ask and things of that nature. But I want to remind people they're in control. I want to provide value and put out things in my professional career. I'm incredibly private and feel that the world is entitled to what you give it. So when I watch people get upset when people get into their business, I'm like, you're giving them your business. By the way, you're leveraging your business. I don't want to leverage nor give my personal life to the world. I don't think that's the right way, by the way. I just think it's my way. So the reason I have a little bit to what you're referring to is it became not sustainable because it's been a long time. And like, I was in a transit, like it was the appropriate time. And I needed to just get some context out there, but it's not where I'm going to go.
And that's what I was more interested by. To me, it's not.
Listen, us being together, my brain goes into maximize the value at the highest levels because we have the opportunity to, for as many people are listening. The takeaway there, from my perspective, is you're in control. You have a learning disability and you want to share it, mazel tov. You don't? Great. It took me back to something less serious. It took me 15 years of public life to say, I'm not candorous. And it's hurt me in my personal life and it's hurt me in my business life. You get to share what you want to share. And I think people should be careful of what they share. You share your abs as like you're a good shaped dude. People are going to talk about your body for the rest of your life. Like you did that. You're going to show your kid all the time. They're going to talk about that relationship. They're going to talk. You're giving the world permission. I prefer not to give the world permission because that's a sacred place for me. You know, even look at my mom. She like the greatest gift I could give to the world is my mom to the world. The greatest. She's alpha me. She's more experienced. She's a different perspective as a mom. She doesn't want it. The end. Right? I thought my dad and mom would be reverse. My dad, I never thought would love the limelight so much. But, you know, so I think if you're listening right now, please, if you're not going on social media because you have a skeleton in your closet, you have a disease, you have a bad, situation, you're like me, and like grew up in a family where like personal life is private. That's, I think, in Russia, that was like, people would go to jail if anybody knew anything about you. So I think it ingrained in my parents, which then ingrained in me and my sister and brother, like we're private that way. I think you have to understand you're in control. Facebook and TikTok and podcasts and YouTube don't make you do anything. They don't make you do anything. Please take advantage of the fact that we all got lucky. Every one of us could have been born at a different era. This could be a keynote about watch out for the Black Plague. Seriously. It's like a funny thing to say. People got wiped the f*** out. I mean it. We've lost complete context of time and historics. Most people in this room are going to live for 50 more years. If you're under 30, it scares me to think about how long you're going to live. Of course, there's the occasional horrible accident. Of course, there's disease. But please pay attention to what's happening. The advancements of modern medicine, this is why I get so going, right? Like, this is why I always make so much content about 28-year-olds, 25, like 30 scares the shit out of people on a random number, on something that made sense maybe 50, 60 years ago when people lived to 60 and 55. Please, just please, figure this out. If you are producing 25 to 50 pieces of content of what you believe, what the value you bring. Remember to make content for the audience, not just for yourself. If you make 50 pieces of content that says buy this, buy that, nothing good's gonna happen. If you figure that out, so much good can happen. We're just caught in judgment and insecurity, trying to impress people we don't even like. Makes no sense, and it needs to stop. We need to make happiness the North Star of our society. I'm done with people saying shit like, I'd rather cry in my Ferrari. It's the stupidest statement of all time. So stupid. People say shit like that when they don't realize what crying is. Depression is horrible. Unhappiness is horrible. Nobody wants to cry in their Ferrari. I'd rather be happy as taking the bus. A funny thing happens when that becomes your system. You start looking for things that make you happy. Funny thing happens when you start doing things that make you happy. You start working more, harder. You become invigorated. You like it. All of a sudden, funny things happen. When you like it and you put in the work, results start happening. You understand? Think about your workout regimen. When you tried to go on the treadmill, that wasn't for you, but you found some, I don't know, some class or some weightlifting or something else. You found the thing that worked for you. You need to find the professional thing that works for you. We need to really have this conversation. Please, if you love college football, if you love cutting hair, if you love fashion, figure out what you love and try to start a side hustle, a podcast, a YouTube show, an Instagram account around that thing that's your hobby, the thing that you want to do laying in your bed from 8 p.m. to 12 at night. And then be grateful that you can lay in your bed from 8 p.m. to 12 at night and actually make something of yourself or make yourself happier or start that thing, because that didn't exist 25 years ago. This is the greatest era of opportunity. Please don't get older and regret not taking advantage of it. I'm wildly content and at peace. And I don't think that would make sense to most people that consume me, because I'm so frantic as a communicator. I'm such high energy. I think the thing I always enjoy when people get close to me, and I'm looking at Dustin and Seth behind, is like, there's incredible levels of confusion on the calmness and like the ability to absorb, bad situations. And that has so much to do with personal life, right? Like friends and family, I feel really good about it. I think a lot of it has to do with the lack of expectation I have of others. Doesn't mean I don't require like any human being, but like I'm incredibly compassionate, not just empathetic. And I think when you combine compassion and empathy, you get into a really zen-y, fun place. I find that, I've been really thinking this through. I'm like, oh, those two, because not only can I feel you, but when you come with something that isn't great, I'm going quickly to, are you okay? Versus this hurts me. And so that gives me a very good personal life.
Yeah.
Again, trials and tribulations like any human on life from different various things, especially candor. I would tell you that everything that I've had challenges with in my life, professionally and personally, has been because I'm non-confrontational, which again, blows people away. Because on stage, I'm incredible at it. Because I'm talking to the world. When I'm talking to the world, I can't see your name or your face. And so I can just have really good observations to incredibly clean data, because very few people on earth read the comments from human beings at the level that I do. It's what I do for a living. So I have crazy insights. One that really caught me was how many wealthy kids were upset with their parents for paying things, but didn't want to give up on their parents. That one really triggered me 4 or 5 years ago, because I didn't grow up in that environment. I was like, oh, this is a wild one. This is a very unhappy 25-year-old with a Tesla, a sick apartment in LA, an unlimited Uber, Equinox, but the subconscious is starting to take over, and they realize their parents think they're losers. That's why they're paying for everything. And it becomes, breaking those things down.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I think I am very happy because I'm very simple. I'm way simpler in business and content than people realize. I'm very simple in life. I don't really want stuff. I like playing. I like competition. That's something I'm passionate about. I've been thinking a lot about competition. I'm thinking about why is there so much anxiety in the system? Of course, social media pipes. I don't blame social the way people do. I just think that people are being exposed.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah, this was happening at dinner tables.
Yes.
And
or
so
in
like
school,
that's right.
Yeah,
So I think people want to blame platforms. This is about a human thing, and I think every country is different, every religion's different, race, gender, there's a lot going on, but I really think that there's a lot of fun little pieces put together that got us to certain places. I think eliminating merit and demonizing competition has been a misstep. I think it came from great intent. I think parents didn't want kids crying. They didn't want them to feel bad. But we started training that 18th place is the same as first place.
Yeah.
Eliminating merit is not a happy place.
Yeah.
It leads to a very unhappy place.
Yeah.
And so, it's funny the things that get me going. Ambition and competition, I'm in. Feels very red. Kindness over anything else, including those two things, and because it's purple.
Yeah.
And that's where my soul is right now for the world, because I think so much of what I am and what I became was my mom and my DNA and my circumstance filled all the gaps along the way. I walked into high school, 4'11", confident.
Yeah.
Not because I thought I would get the cheerleader or it was going to be the most popular, because I had zero interest in that validation.
Yeah.
Not that I thought I was better. And I think these popular, I just wanted to be nice to everybody. I wanted to do my baseball card shows. I want to get my D's and F's on my way to going to the wine business. I wanted everybody to be happy. And it really hasn't stopped. I think reputation is based on truth. And so in today's world where there's nowhere to hide, instead of hiring a PR person in 1994 and getting the right articles, I think it's just delivering. Crush it for your employees, crush it for your clients, and fundamentally give without expectation. Go give a keynote at a college with no expectation. Answer those 10 emails of people reaching out to you that have nothing to offer you, and just give because they actually may have a ton to offer you. What I love is that reputation is becoming a more transparent game. And so the only way to build a reputation is to do the right things. So over-deliver for the ones that have something or the ones that don't have something. Way too many entrepreneurs are way too calculated about what's in it for me. If you can reverse that and think about what's in it for them, you'll find out that a lot of things are in it for you. If you're DMing me or emailing me, know that I don't fool around. When you DM me and say, I can't, the first thing I do is go to your account. Don't let me hear that you're broke as and the first story I click on, you're drinking a $7 coffee. If you're broke, you're not allowed to take Uber. Take the bus. We need to start saving money to get it. Are you in a spot? Are you in debt? You don't like it? There's going to be no fast track to $1 million that's going to fix that. It's going to be taking a step back and drinking a whole lot of humility, not a French latte. I don't get it. People are always like, Gary, your story about you building your dad's business, that's not true. That can't be true. You had money to invest in Twitter and all that. I know your story. I'm like, okay. Right, because when I made $53,000 a year, I had a $2,000 a month apartment. Then I moved down to a $1,400 one because I wanted to save more money, and I bought nothing for a decade. I went out 0 times. I bought no clothes. I wore liquor t-shirts to work. I spent no money. Not super complicated. How many people here are immigrants or the children of immigrants? Raise your hands. Raise them high. How many people are the children of? Keep your hands up. And how many are the actual immigrants? Awesome. Immigrants have this figured out. Immigrants come here, they work, and they save money. I went on 1.5 vacations my entire childhood. We went to Orlando. We stayed in the Holiday Inn, and my mom ate like 1 sandwich in the week. Immigrant. Everybody cries about immigrants. They don't spend money on dumb shit. Try it. Save money, and then do your thing. It's about patience, where everybody gets caught up. Now somebody's sitting here, Sally's sitting here, she's 39. She's like, okay, this makes sense. And then she's like, but and she's like, it's gonna take too long. And I'm like, Sally, you're 39. Do you wanna be miserable as for the next 60 years? Or do you wanna have some grinding years for the next 7 and be 46 and young as and start the process of actually being happy? People's complete inability to take 1 step backwards, to take 2 steps forward, is destroying people. Do you know how many people here own their home? Do you know how many of those people should sell it? I'm being serious. Do you know how many people have no liquid cash? Their home is their drain, and what they should do is sell the home and either buy a smaller one or rent to give themselves liquid to be able to go on the offense. But their home, which, oh, by the way, has 4 too many rooms. No, like, do you know how few people have a home that actually fits their actual reality? People have homes with 4 extra rooms or live in a town that makes it look better for them. Man, there's so many up moves out here, my friends. I haven't even started. And I'm just like, geez, so many things. And by the way, it all goes back to what I started with. Everything good that happened to me is because of my inability to hear you cheering or to hear you booing. You just don't know me, and I don't know you. And I don't fully know my mom, and she doesn't fully know me. I'm being serious. We all know this. Only you know you. So why are you letting somebody else's judgment dictate your behavior? It's true. All right, I think I've made my point on the clouds. Let's get into the dirt. There's 2 places, and you know where I'm going right now, that have so much free organic reach that if you post on it, good will happen. TikTok, LinkedIn, right? I've been saying it. You all were waiting for it. You made the jokes right now. You can name it. You can verbatim say I was going to say it. You just tapped your friend and said, I told you he was going to say it. And you still don't do it. This is some unbelievable shit. You literally know. You're talking to somebody now who for 15 years has been right consistently of where the underpriced attention is. I've told you for a half decade, the reason I'm always right is I never guess, I just wait till it happens, and then I just say it the fastest and the loudest. I come here today begging, not pleading, not asking, begging you to look yourself in the mirror tonight and ask yourself if you're happy. And people always say, I don't know what my passion is. I don't know what I would do. Yes, you do. You do. You just don't think it would work. You think it's too small. You think it's too silly. You think people would judge you. You know. You're just scared to say it. You know exactly what you would do if you could do it every minute of your life. You may not right now. As I'm saying this, you're like, no, I don't. Gary, I don't. It's because you haven't even allowed yourself to look. This is the time to build businesses and profiles and content around what you enjoy. This is the time. This is the time. For me, my whole world has only been about the consumer. It has nothing to do with B2B. It has nothing to do with anything. I will never allow anybody to have leverage over me and the end consumer. So my selling hasn't adjusted in a social media world. It's just excelled what I've always naturally done, which is engagement at scale. And reverse engineering and asking questions and listening to what you actually value versus what my audacity wants you to value. Selling to a VC and getting funding is the furthest thing from selling to the end consumer. What do you think the minimum amount of money you want to make for your life? Like, what would be the minimum amount of money that you make every year that allowed you to live and do that content media site? What do you think?
Maybe 40,000, 50,000 pounds, maybe.
Great. So you're like, what is amazing about that, if that's where you're at, well then at this young of an age, and that's where you're at, and the fact that you're even here and you know, it's just unbelievable amounts of content in written, audio, and visual form on Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, and podcast. And I will tell you, I would be flabbergasted in 3, 4, 5, 6 years, unless you suck, which you may. But if you don't suck, and you have that little of a financial need, right, which is remarkable, which is the biggest thing. Somebody here, I don't know if they're here, said, you made me realize I didn't need Rolexes and things of that nature, right? Like, the biggest reason so many of you will fail is your number for success is far greater than his. You think you need $1 million, which will then mean that you're gonna do a lot of things when you don't get $1 million very quickly that won't ever get you $1 million. So if you think what I just said is cool, which is bleed for 6 years in a row, you'll probably get sponsorship or sales of product to 40,000 a year. To me, that's what I did. I knew what I wanted. I was willing to give up my 20s for it. Gave them up. Gave them up. You know, somebody said, it's difficult not to document right now. I'm like, but I didn't, right? They're like, what, should I build my business or should I document? I'm like, both. He's like, well, I gotta pick one. I'm like, build your business. Like, so if your ambitions are that humble, which they are, that's incredible. That excites me. Because by the way, here's the funny part. That's who I was too. I just needed 100,000 a year. Just, that seemed rich to me, right? Like, I was like, cool, I'll be okay. Like I'll have a house, like, you know, it's not, you know, I just needed to play, I needed the game. And too many of you in here want the stuff, not the game. When you fall in love with the game, everything's different because you've already won. That's real. It sounds cliche, but it's real.
I really see that there's so few people that take advantage of what's out there.
Because a lot of people hear that stuff and think it's more like the secret, like you just sit and you dream it into existence.
Right.
It's got a very interesting stigma. Listen, I, for example, as you know, don't love positioning myself as a motivational speaker. Even the content you just saw, but no question, the mindset is the operating system of our lives, and I'm an absolute believer in cutting out negativity, going on the offense, like positive thinking, like what's the alternative, like practicality. I'm a big believer in that stuff.
But action is really the biggest thing, huh?
And I do believe that the right mindset leads to the right actions. So yes, I do think you have to, listen, to me it's about getting poison out of the system. Right? I mean, look, how many people lose in your situation?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because that's what they decide to think about. You didn't. The end. It's binary. And so, you know, one of the things I do often is the people around me that are thinking about negativity, I'm like, what's the alternative? There's so much negative, there's like, this scares the shit out of people. You're positive, they're running around with their legs and complaining, right? So I'm with you, I couldn't agree more. Evan, thank you so much for having a couple seconds and being able to tell the Believe Nation a little bit about Empathy Wines. It means a lot to me that you would take this valuable real estate and time on your channel to give me some love. It means a lot. It's just good karma points, and so you're awesome. Thank you. Believe Nation, if you're into wine at all, go to empathywines.com. My whole career's work was poured into producing a wine that rivaled $40 to $60 wine for 20 bucks a bottle. I'm just super excited about this subscription-based wine business. You can order 3, 6, or 12 bottles in subscription form, rosé, white, red. If you search on Instagram or Twitter, you will be blown away. People are literally like, I don't even like Gary Vee, but the wine's good. Super proud of the effort. Thanks, Evan, for the time. Wishing you guys all happy and healthy.
Because you made it this far in a video, I want to celebrate you. Most people start and don't finish. Most people never actually follow through. Most people say they want something, but they don't ever do the work to actually get it. But you are different. You are special. Believe Nation, you made it here all the way to the end, and I love you. So as a special celebration, if you put a hashtag Believe down in the comments below on this video, I will showcase you and celebrate you somewhere on the screen in a future video because you are awesome. For 50 more rules from David Goggins, check the video right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
So the first thing is, that's the first big problem right there. First big problem is that you have put a lot of people above you. Put no one above you. No one. Whatever. But if you believe in something,
say that again. Say that again.